Just when you thought there could not be more change going on in the world, magnetic north is moving. Aviators know it has always moved, but not like this. It's just skipping along. It's on the move about 40 miles a year now along the polar cap toward Russia. It's a natural, unstoppable occurrence, but because of it, some airport runways, calibrated by compass, are now 3 or 4 degrees off. At Tampa International in Florida, they're going to repaint the numbers on the runway and redesignate them because the dead center, top of the world, magnetic north on the compass, is on the move in a big way.
When most people hear North Pole, they think of Santa Claus. And while he'll always be at the very top of the world,
there's also a magnetic pole which is produced by fluctuations or flow of iron in the core of the Earth.
Dr. Chris Connor of USF explains that the constantly moving molten iron acts like a giant car alternator, creating a magnetism on a planetary scale with a magnetic north and south pole.
But over the last few decades, it's been moving, and now it's moved all the way from northern Canada into northern Siberia.
Which means what your compass shows as north isn't really north. And this is a problem for airports.
When a pilot navigates, he needs to find which is the correct runway to land in or take off on. So he uses his compass in his cockpit to orient himself. They'll tell him that he's on the correct runway.
Several times per million years, Earth's magnetic pole does a full flip. At first, it becomes disorganized, with new poles popping up in odd places like the equator, bringing the green and red northern lights to the skies of Florida. The last shift was over 700,000 years ago, leaving some to say we're due.
Some people have speculated that there's a shift beginning,
which may explain this recent fluctuation. But because our lifetimes are a blink of an eye in the geological timescale, it's too soon to tell.
A Minneapolis astronomer says everything that you've ever been told about the zodiac is just flat out wrong. Tom Wyden with a dust-up that could have you looking at a different horoscope, Tom?
Yeah, I actually think it is a pretty good pickup line, by the way. But the zodiac was by far the top trending item on Google today, with just millions of hits, and it all traces back to a professor at Minneapolis Community Technical College who says astrology is ignoring some very real and basic astronomy. It may change the way you look at the stars and perhaps yourself.
If you've ever looked to the stars to ponder your fate,
moon speed is changing.
Never look to an astronomer.
And when people ask me what my sign is, I usually say I'm a vegetarian.
Jokes aside, Professor Park Kunkel says the zodiac's got a date problem. Imagine the Earth, he says, as a spinning top. As it wobbles, the axis changes.
Right now it's pointing towards the North Star, Polaris, the pole star. But 3000 BC, things were oriented differently.
So over 5,000 years, the constellations have shifted, meaning Libras are really Virgos, Aries are Pisces, and don't forget Ophiuchus, astrology's orphan.
Ophiuchus has been a constellation for thousands of years, and yet it just gets ignored.
And we know that. We know that it's not in the same sign.
Betsy Bloomfeld of Mendota Heights has been studying astrology for 30 years. Most of the charting nowadays is done by computer.
We argue a lot as astrologers.
And she says most Western astrologers don't look to the stars anymore, but rather the Earth.
Where the sun appears to be bonded within that system and the elliptic. I'm losing you probably. This is where I'm not an astronomer, I will admit that. I can't really be as specific, but I just know what works.
But if it's not based on anything real, then what is it based on?
For the astrologer and astronomer, it seems the stars will never align, the age-old battle between science and mysticism. And yet both keep looking.
I'm having a blast with this.
Unprecedented activity on the Sun and increasingly frequent natural disasters on Earth have led some scientists to predict an ominous climax in or about the year 2012.
Now, what does that mean? Solar attack. It's not that the sun doesn't like us and is after us. There's no paranoia in this. It's simply that when the sun has storms, it shoots out billion-ton blasts of protons and other radiation. Most of it goes off in other directions, but a certain percentage of it will hit the Earth, just the law of averages. Recently, we have found strange occurrences. Usually it takes about 2 to 3 days for coronal mass ejection, the CME, which is the term for this blast, to travel from the sun to the Earth. But in January 2005, there was one that made it in 30 minutes. Unless Einstein was seriously mistaken, if that thing cut another 22 minutes off of its travel time, it went down to 8 minutes, would be the speed of light, we would be completely obliterated. California-sized cracks are opening up in the Earth's magnetic field, and when the crack opens up, the magnetic field is our shield against these coronal mass ejections, our shield against solar radiation. And when the crack opens up, our shields are down, Scotty.
Not all scientists agree with Joseph's findings. Colgate University professor of astronomy and anthropology, Anthony Avini, is skeptical that external forces are creating most of the changes we are experiencing on Earth.
If a stream of solar particles can cause a radio fade out, it can also affect satellite communications. But I don't think that it's going to have any large-scale geophysical effect on the Earth. And I suppose you could, if you really want to push it, you could connect it with weather. But we have to remember that the bulk of the effect that produces hurricanes, tornadoes, is entirely encased within the Earth. It's got a lot more to do with rotation and the circulation of air than it does with these outside effects, but I would admit that they could have a meteorological effect.
Earth has just been visited by the perfect solar storm.
The sun kicked up this just incredible solar flare and a massive amount of energy headed towards Earth.
Not only was this storm one of the 2 most powerful on record, it was also one of the fastest. Ejecting from a sunspot aimed directly at Earth, it raced from the sun to our planet in less than 18 hours.
Now it takes a really fast rocket ship years to get to the sun. This storm, this cloud of electrified particles, managed to get here in less than a day. That's incredibly fast.
The effects that would be on us today compared to 1859 could be devastating.
The effects on Earth and on our communication systems, we don't exactly know. That's the scary part.
Around the world, nations are sending military assets now to the Middle East, surrounding the area of Libya. The French have taken the first action, targeting for tanks or armored vehicles there in Libya. And the response on the part of rebels in Benghazi has been cheers. NBC's chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel is in Cairo now.
Truly say this from my heart, I believe the next great event in the world is the second coming of the Lord Jesus. Amen. When, I do not know. No one else knows. But I can't see nothing left but a hydrogen explosion and the end time. The world rocked out of its orbits like it was in the antediluvian that throwed it away from the sun, and the heat and the moisture, or the heat and the cold coming together make a moisture that flooded the world. And this time, no more water, but fire this time into the sun to blow it right straight back out of its orbit again into the sun to destroy it the second time. Amen. Think on these things while we minister now in His name. Let us pray.